Guys, what's up? Cardmaster Phoenix here. For you guys, some more Magic the Gathering Arena content. Today, going to be going over my deck for the February 2024 standard format. So this is based heavily off of what originally was the most popular 5-color domain ramp lists that were going around in standard around, I want to say, quarter three, mid quarter three to early quarter four of last year, 2023 it is. And now I have got not only all the cards for it, but I have also got the cards for a lot of different other decks and engines and whatnot. So that's stuff that we can look at doing in the future, but for now I just want to start with the deck that I didn't actually start with, but I had been building towards for probably a full, I want to say, week or two, and it definitely would have taken me a lot longer if I didn't invest the money I did in this game, which is not a lot, but, you know, this was about, I want to say, $40 to $60 just for this deck. So anyway, and that's not saying you can necessarily buy cards with money, but you can buy the wild cards to craft the cards you want with it. So there's that. Let's go ahead and get into the deck profile. So the first thing is the the Invasion of Zendikar, which is the centerpiece of the deck. It is a siege for 3 and a green, and when it enters the battlefield, you search your library for the 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So at first it doesn't look very special, but when you destroy it, it flips to Awakened Skyclave, which is a 4/4 Vigilance and Haste. It's a land in addition to its other types and can tap for a mana of any color, so that's really useful. You really just want to play to get this out on curve right on turn 4, and then on turn 5 you play one of your big threats like Atraxa, Green Unifier, Etali Primal Conqueror, or of course the Herd Migration that I mentioned earlier, and just kind of go from there. There is some flexibility in the sort of variations of this deck you can use. There was a variation that used Bramble Familiar and the Kami of War 5-color battle thing, and there's also one that used the Bramble Familiar was used with the Maelstrom 5-color thing. But anyway, it's just pure domain ramp. Outside of that, we supplement it with the actual win conditions. Atraxa Grand Unifier is stupid. This card is, I mean, if you would have told me before, actually getting back into Magic, hey, Atraxa has a new form and it's even more obnoxious than the original one, I would have just told you to get the hell out of the room. But nope, it is here and it is worse. It is 3, a green, a white, a blue, and a black for a 7/7 legendary Phyrexian Angel, Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and for each card type, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Card types including Artifact, Battle, Creature, Enchantment, Instant, Land, Planeswalker, and Sorcery. So those are your 8 card types there. So potentially it's a 1 mana draw 8. So, plus, I guess it's not even really just a +7 because it's a +8 because you're contributing to the board as well. And then you also have 4 copies of Etali Primal Conqueror, which is a 7/7 legendary Elder Dinosaur Trample for 5 double red. And when it enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. However, by paying 9 in a Phyrexian green mana, meaning either a source of green or 2 life, you can transform Etali at sorcery speed into Etali Primal Sickness, which is an 11/11 legendary Phyrexian Elder Dinosaur with Trample and Indestructible, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters, including trample damage. So that's, yeah, it's definitely a way you can win the game there. We also do have Herd Migration, which is a very popular sorcery. Probably the best sorcery that came out in 2023. It's 6 and a green for a sorcery with Domain, meaning that you create a 3/3 green beast creature token for each basic land type among lands you control, and then it has an activated ability of paying 1 and a green and discarding it to search the library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle, and you gain 3 life. One thing I do want to note about the Herd Migration is that it actually is affected by Tri-lands, so the new Capenna family Tri-lands are actually really great with this. They synergize very well with it, because if you have, say, a Rafine's Tower out, right, that means you have an island, a swamp, and a plains already out on the battlefield, meaning that 3 of your 5 colors are already accounted for. So if you played it, it would be 7 mana for 3 3/3s, which isn't that bad. It's not great, but I mean, it's something, you know. And it very commonly, within your first 2 lanes, you have all 5 colors, so that's never a problem. You also have Elesh Norn Mother of Machines, which I'm playing to help shut down other enter the battlefield decks, as well as double up my own enter the battlefield triggers. It's 4 and a white for a 4/7 with Legendary Phyrexian Praetor Vigilance. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes the triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Permanents entering the battlefield doesn't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. So, that says it all, man. We also have Steal from Existence, which is an enchantment for a 1 double white. It has Ward 3, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Steal from Existence leaves the battlefield. This is exactly like Ossification and Borrowed Time before it, except this card actually has Ward 3, so it's much better. And that's the only reason you really need. But there's also Leyline Binding, which is, I don't know. I'm not sure it's the best enchantment that's come out this year, but it's really damn good. It is a enchantment for 5 and a white. It has Flash and Domain. Flash meaning, of course, it can cast at any time. You could cast an instant, meaning basically any time. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control, being mountain, island, forest, plains, and swamp, of course. And when it enters the battlefield, you exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Leyline Binding leaves the battlefield. Now, while it's true that this doesn't have the protection that Steal from Existence does, it is much easier to get out because it's only 1 mana most times compared to 3, and it also can be done at instant speed, which is super awesome. Now, one addition I'm not so sure about is Unstable Glyph Bridge. This is just really something I have in as kind of like a tech choice, but I don't know if I'm really going to stay with it. I opened it in a pack one time and I was like, oh, that's cool, I'll probably look at using that at some point, and it just hasn't really come up. It was relevant for one, I guess technically 2 games I've played, but I mean, most of the time this doesn't really do anything with my testing with it. It is an artifact for 3 double white. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it for each player, choose a creature at power 2 or less that player controls, then destroy all creatures except creatures chosen this way, and you can craft it with an artifact for 3 double white, and choose Sandswirl Wanderglyph, which is a 5/3 artifact creature golem flying, and whenever an opponent casts a spell during their turn, they can't attack you or planeswalkers you control this turn. and each opponent who attacked you or a planeswalker you control this turn can't cast spells. So really cool with that kind of shutdown effect there. Very Staxy, and although I hate to admit that that's something that's more in line with my kind of preferred playstyle, it's just, there's so much that's like, I'm just gonna make it's fighting fire with fire, basically. And no, it's not exactly where I want to be. It's not fair, fun Magic, but it's modern day Magic. So that's where we're at right now. And then, of course, we have Virtue of Persistence, which is an enchantment for 5 and double black that reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So, because of that wording, you can actually take something from your opponent's graveyard and bring it onto yours under your control. It doesn't have to be from your graveyard, and that lends itself really well to self-mill and stuff like that. But it also has the sorcery Adventureside, Locthwain Scorn for 1 and a black. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. You gain 2 life. Both of the, it's a really amazing spell because first off, the -3/-3 kills basically anything that's 3 or below CMC, and the extra 2 life is pretty nice, So, since you're getting used out of the -3/-3 like kill a creature anyway, yeah, it's really good. Anyway, that will kind of do it for the actual bulk of the main deck. There is, of course, some stuff to go over, like the Jetmir's Garden, Giator's Proving Grounds, and Rafine's Tower. But these are just the types Tri-lands from New Capenna. They each enter the battlefield tapped and tap for 1 of 3 different colors, with cycling for 3, meaning you pay 3, trash it, and you draw a new card. 1 forest, 2 mountains, 1 island, 3 swamps, and 5 plains. Moving on to the sideboard, we have 4 copies of the Stonebrain, which is a legendary artifact for 2 generic mana, and then you pay 2 generic mana, tap, and exile the Stonebrain, and choose a card name. You search target's opponent's graveyard, hand, and library, library, I guess you should say, for up to 4 cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled from your hand this way. Activate only as a sorcery. Very nice anti-combo piece. Really helps shut down a lot of instant I win combos, or just degenerate combos in general. And it's for that reason I just love it. I don't actually tend to change up my sideboards that much. There are times where in between every few sets of games, I'll be like, hey, this isn't being used, let's switch it up for something else. But most of the time when I create a sideboard for a deck, that sideboard stays as is for a decent while. I have 3 copies of Shielded the Apocalypse in here, just because I want the additional win condition. It's completely valid to just play her and just sit on it for a bit while she bolsters up your life count and dwindles down your opponents. And it's technically in and of itself a win condition. No one wants to swing into a 4 or 5 Death Toucher. So for 2 double black, you're getting a really good deal. I have Tishana's Tidebinder. This card is a card that, at least personally, feels a little overrated at the moment. That's really just because I haven't gotten the time to, properly experiment with it. But it is a 3/2 Merfolk Wizard Flash for 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tishana's Tidebinder remains on the battlefield. Mana abilities cannot be targeted. However, the ability to just completely shut down an entire playset of something in someone's like all copies of a card is just insane. That aspect of that kind of Staxy effect is definitely, this is the first time we've seen something like that. I've been playing Magic almost religiously since Amonkhet block, back when they had block constructed. Now it's, Magic Story was set in blocks of 2 or 3 sets each on a specific plane or what have you. Now we are, of course, not doing that. It's more of a set-by-set thing, it seems to be. But in any case, yeah, it's cool. We have Enduring Angel. Moving right along here, it is a 3/3 Angel for 2 and triple white. It says that you, as the player who owns or controls / owns her, simply has hexproof, and if your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. So really cool, just so that you play her and you can kind of technically die but still get a second chance. It's really cool. Then you have Angelic Enforcer here. The backside of her flying, you have hexproof, so it's still, the backside always tends to be the better half of a card in all these transform or flip cards. Again, Angelic Enforcer's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. When Angelic Enforcer attacks, double your life total, so that's really cool. So with that being said, we now move on to Farewell, which is a sorcery for 4 white. Choose one or more, exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, exile all graveyards. Shouldn't really have to explain this one. And we of course have Toxel the Corrosive, 5 black for 7/7 legendary slug horror. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. And also you can pay blue, a black, and sacrifice a slug to draw a card. And that just goes really well with hosing the token decks like Selesnya Enchantments, green white humans, kind of mono red aggro, not really. There's like not a huge token centric or even board centric really deck for that matter in the format currently, at least in terms of creatures from what I've seen the past 48 hours. But I mean, I have seen. Well, no, I guess technically Selesnya Enchantments is board based. I mean, it depends how you define it. But I would definitely consider board based. But anyway, so that is the deck. Here are the stats in case you want to see that. 12 creatures and 24 non-creatures. We have an average mana cost of 5.7, 4 3-drops, 4 4-drops, 8 5-drops, 26 6 or more cost cards. We have 20 white mana symbols for 56% of the deck, 4 blue mana symbols for 11%, 8 for black, 22%, 4 for red, 11%, 12 for green, 33%, 4 multicolor, and 24 lands. And then, of course, this is just the personal stuff I have. And then here's your good little extra info stuff. So, yeah, there's that. Now, let's go ahead and hop right into the game.
many souls trapped on this plane. They don't deserve us. Fighting the undead is my specialty.
Is wasted. You cannot win. Organic minds are easily cleansed.
Need a weapon? I got plenty.
Witting me? Impossible! Our plans are beyond your comprehension.
You have no idea who you're messing with. Oh, I've got the perfect tools for the job.
Efficient solution must be found.
Hey, gold 2. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck tech and the gameplay. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been your host, Cardmaster Phoenix, signing out. See you guys next time. Have a good one.